These are 36 details you didn't know about The Lion King. Number 1. The movie begins with the iconic Circle of Life tune that takes us through the presentation of Simba to the animals of the Pride Lands. The African chants that can be heard throughout this musical number translate to English as, "Here comes a lion, father. Oh yes, it's a lion. Oh yes, it's a lion. Here comes a lion, father. Oh yes, it's a lion. A lion we're going to conquer. A lion and a leopard come to this open place." No, really. Number 2. This leads us into meeting Scar, Mufasa's jealous brother, who was previously next in line for the throne before Simba was born. You'll notice that Scar's eyes are a bright green, symbolizing his jealousy for Mufasa and selfishness, which follows the age-old Disney trait of Disney villains being associated with that very color one way or another. Number 3. Mufasa then arrives to confront his brother for not being present for the presentation of Simba. Here we see that Scar always has his claws displayed, as is the way through the whole movie, to symbolize his antagonistic ways. Number 4. As we move into Simba's slightly older years as a cub, we find him trying to wake his parents one morning. We hear a tired Mufasa say to his queen Sarabi that,
"Before sunrise, he's your son."
Which is a nod to Mufasa being the ruler of everything the light touches, as he mentions not long after. Number 5. Mufasa then shows Simba the whole of their kingdom, known as the Pride Lands.
"Everything the light touches is our kingdom."
Fire! Hyenas! In the Pride Lands!
The kingdom is so named as a nod to the fact that a group of lions is known as a pride. Number 6. That day, Simba's duped by his uncle Scar to go to an elephant graveyard outside of the Pride Lands. This prompts him to recruit his friend Nala to join him, with Sarabi approving under false pretenses. This movie actually marks the second time actress Madge Sinclair, who voices Sarabi, and James Earl Jones, who voices Mufasa, are king and queen after the 1980s movie Coming to America. Number 7. In the climax of the song, they're just about able to ditch the dodo. You'll see when the animal pyramid's created that anteaters are present, which isn't totally accurate as these animals are natives of South America as opposed to Africa. Number 8. En route to the graveyard, Simba and Nala playfully fight, with Nala winning each time. While recording this scene, Simba's voice actor, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, was hit on his back so as to make it sound like he was having the wind knocked out of him. Number 9. The youngsters then reach the elephant graveyard. Here you'll see elephant skeletons with tusks that are shaped like the letter E from the side, representing the first letter of the word elephant. Number 10. Zazu, of course, catches up with Simba and Nala, and not long after, hyenas arrive and a chase ensues. During the section where Simba and Nala slide down the elephant's ribcage, voice actor Jonathan Taylor Thomas's back was drummed on to create the jumpy effect for his voice. Number 11. Thankfully, Mufasa arrives and saves the cubs, being disappointed in his son but finding it in his heart to forgive him eventually. During Mufasa and Simba's heart-to-heart, when you look at the stars, you can actually see the constellation of Leo the lion in the sky. Number 12. We then find out that Scar's orchestrated for the hyenas to find and kill his nephew, and we go into his only musical number, Be Prepared. At the start of this number, we get more green symbolism of the character's villainy. Number 13. During Scar's musical number, he makes it clear that the hyenas will be rewarded for their part in his plans to kill Mufasa and Simba so that he can claim the throne. During this sequence, you can see the hyenas marching, which is reminiscent of old footage of the Nazis marching during World War II. Number 14. The musical number ends with Scar and his hyenas all giving a menacing laugh before they begin to plot Mufasa and Simba's demise. The laughs from the hyenas at the end of the song are actually from the movie's directors Roger Allers and Rob Minkoff. Number 15. We next see Scar meeting Simba in a gorge where he tells his nephew to wait for his father there as he has a surprise for him and maybe practice his roar. When the scene zooms out, you can see an upside-down Mickey at the top of the tree. Number 16. As Simba practices his roar, the hyenas antagonize a herd of wildebeest and the iconic stampede is set in motion. This sequence took Disney's CG department around 3 years to animate. It required a completely new computer program to make it work effectively. Number 17. After saving his son, it's during this sequence that Mufasa is sent to his death by Scar, who then makes Simba believe he's responsible, causing him to run away. Aside from the movie's obvious inspiration from Shakespeare's Hamlet, this plotline also has elements of the Osirian family myths of ancient Egypt, which saw the king Osiris murdered by his brother Seth, causing their heir Horus to be sent into exile. Number 18. Not long after his exile, Simba meets Timon and Pumbaa, who try to lift his spirits and make him turn his back on his past, with help from the Hakuna Matata musical number. number. This sequence saw Pumbaa be the first Disney character to fart on screen. Number 19. Timon and Pumbaa welcome Simba to their home and show him how they go from day to day. When Timon and Pumbaa show Simba about eating bugs, you'll notice that some bugs have designs that mirror the look of masks in African culture, and one even has the design of Mickey Mouse's pants. Number 20. As the Hakuna Matata number finishes off, we now have an adult Simba who's acclimated to carefree living with his two new best pals. As Simba and the guys walk away at the end of this song, you'll see a lot of green background, which is symbolic of how selfish Simba has become by turning his back on his responsibilities. Number 21. Back at Pride Rock, we find that Scar's turned the kingdom into a wasteland. Zazu begins to sing "It's a Small World After All," which is of course a nod to the classic ride at Disneyland. Number 22. Scar then insists Zazu sing something more enjoyable, which an imprisoned Zazu obliges. As Zazu sings a lovely bunch of coconuts, he holds up a baboon skull, and it's very much a nod to the iconic "to be or not to be" speech from Hamlet, which this movie is heavily inspired by as mentioned earlier. Number 23. Back in Simba's new life, he, Timon, and Pumbaa stargaze. During this scene, you see Pumbaa rubbing his belly, which was included by the movie's animator Tony Bancroft, who noticed how his then pregnant wife did the same. He felt it would make the character appear more relatable. Number 24. Back in the Pride Lands, Rafiki joyfully discovers that Simba's still alive and plots to bring him back to Pride Rock to rule as king. When Rafiki cracks open the fruit before discovering this, it's reminiscent of when he cracks open the fruit during Circle of Life in the movie's opening. Whereas the first time was symbolic for his birth, this time is symbolic of his rebirth.
It is time.
Number 25. When Timon and Pumbaa are on a nice walk, they're attacked by a lioness, and luckily Simba arrives in the nick of time to save them. The save is reminiscent when Mufasa saved Simba, Nala, and Zazu earlier in the movie, mirroring how Simba still has some of his father in him at this point. Number 26. Simba then realizes that the lioness attacking his friends is actually Nala, and the pair begin to bond again, this time in a romantic sense with help from Elton John's "Can You Feel the Love Tonight?" A few weeks before the movie's release, John was given a screening of the movie and noticed his song had been cut. He pushed for the song to be put back in, and the song went on to win the Academy Award for Best Original Song. Number 27. Not long after, Simba and Nala argue over his ignorance of what Scar's doing back in the Pride Lands, causing the pair to part on bad terms. It's here that Simba refers to Mufasa for the first time as father instead of dad, which is symbolic how he's matured into adulthood. Number 28. The argument leads Simba to come into contact with Rafiki, which brings about a conversation between Simba and the spirit of Mufasa. This very scene was actually the last created for the movie. Number 29. Simba decides to return to Pride Rock and fight for his kingdom with Nala, Timon, and Pumbaa following on, which leads to Simba's idea of his two comedic friends making a distraction. Timon's line about dressing in drag and doing the hula was actually improvised by the character's voice actor Nathan Lane. Number 30. Timon and Pumbaa then perform a quick hula number to distract the hyenas whilst Simba goes to look for Scar. This quick number was originally going to be a disco dance with inspiration from Saturday Night Fever. Number 31. Simba then reveals himself to everyone after Scar hits Sarabi, and he prepares to take on his uncle, but not before Scar points out the amount of hyenas on his side. If you look at the top right as we see all the hyenas looking down on Simba, you won't see a hyena but Jock from Lady and the Tramp. Number 32. Scar then tries to have everyone turn on Simba due to his belief that he caused his father's death. But the rightful king soon realizes the truth and the battle for Pride Rock begins, with Scar and Simba eventually going toe-to-toe. During Scar and Simba's fight, Scar actually draws blood from his nephew, making him one of the new Disney villains to do so, just like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. Number 33. Simba eventually flings Scar from the cliff top where the hyenas are waiting for him and rip him apart after hearing him try to make out to Simba that they're the real villains. Scar's death ironically very much mirrors Mufasa's death in that they both fell from a cliff and met their deaths on the ground. Number 34. Triumphant, Simba then goes to greet his subjects. If you look closely at Zazu during the scene, you'll see that his beak moves. This is because he was originally going to say, "Your Majesty," before the line was cut. The animators didn't have time to change Zazu's movement. Number 35. Simba then steps up to the cliff of Pride Rock and roars, marking the beginning of his reign as king. As Simba looks up to the sky and hears, you can just about make out a representation of Mufasa's outline standing out from the stars.